Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Unistats training webinar for further education colleges for 2017. So talking to you today, you have myself, Natasha Heaney, Josh Tiley and Nick Bailey, and we're all analysts at HEFKE. So just briefly, how this webinar is going to work. Feel free to ask questions at any time using the Ask a Question option underneath the main screen. Any general questions we'll try to get through at the end. If you have a specific question about your institution, then it's best to email the Unistats inbox directly. There are some additional resources available below, featuring some of the tools or guidance we referenced during the webinar. For those of you that attended the training sessions back in May, we've taken on board your feedback and we're hoping to cover more of what you wanted in greater detail in this webinar. For those of you who were unable to make the training, this doesn't cover all areas of the training, but should still be helpful. You can find a link to the training documentation in the list of resources below. It might be helpful to view this presentation in full screen, as some parts display small text that could be hard to read in the regular sized window. You can do this by hovering over the presentation window and clicking on the expanding box in the corner. So what we're going to cover today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of Unistats, then Josh will talk you through specific parts of the process in more detail. Nick will then finish off by going through the check docs, as well as some of the most frequently asked questions, and we'll also try to answer as many of your questions as possible that you've asked throughout the presentation at the end. So, just to give a brief introduction, Unistats is an overview of information on HE courses to aid students' study choices and allow them to compare information across similar courses. Previously, this was called the Key Information Set, or KISS. It includes information on student satisfaction measures provided from the NSS, as well as employment status from the DELI. Information provided by yourselves via the submission system, such as location information, is also included. Information is provided at course level if there is sufficient data to display. Otherwise, information is aggregated across years or with similar courses to allow the information to be displayed. This year, however, as part of the review of information, the NSS questionnaire was updated and we will not aggregate this across years. And once everything's all ready, this is what the web page looks like, which hopefully you've all seen before. As for eligibility criteria, make sure all courses submitted are eligible to appear on Unistats by checking the coverage of the record outlined on the HESA website. Some examples of eligibility criteria are listed here. For example, courses must be more than 1 year in length and start between August 2018 and the end of July 2019. Here are the key dates for the Unistats system in 2017. The initial valid data submission deadline is the 13th of July, and the deadline for data to be signed off to appear on the website preview is the 3rd of August. During the preview period, you'll be able to see exactly how your courses will appear on the site once it goes live in September. If anything doesn't look right, you have until the 24th of August, the final deadline, to make amendments and sign off again. Any changes after this time will not be incorporated in time for the website going live on the 4th of September. At some point after this deadline, the system will reopen for updates and you can continue to update your course information as necessary.
So, there are three main tools that are provided by HESA that we would suggest you use in the completion of your Unistats submission. The first is the one you'll probably be most familiar with, and that's the coding manual. So we've got the link to it there, and it should also be below the main screen on the webinar. And it's a complete resource with all fields and all of their potential values that you may need to submit. It also contains all the quality rules, supporting documentation, and lots of details about how we will use the data moving forward. Inside this coding manual are the data entry tool and the validation kit. We will cover the data entry tool in a little bit more detail later, but effectively it's a resource that makes the creation of a Unistats XML file for 2017 much easier. It makes sure the formatting of the file is correct and as our system would expect, and also makes sure that all required fields are included. As for the validation kit, this is a good first checking mechanism for your submission. It will notify you about any Validation 1 errors and warnings, and we also use this tool as part of the main submission kit. Again, the links to both of these are both in this webinar and can be found inside the coding manual.
We will now take a look at HESA's Unistats XML data editor. The editor is the most efficient way to put together an XML file for the Unistats 17 submission process. It can be found on HESA's website in the C17061 or Unistats 17 coding manual. It's in the Submission Process and Quality Assurance section. You can download it by clicking on that link there, the HESA XML Data Entry Tool link, or if you require further guidance, you can open the Guidance link. As you will see, we've already done this and it's saved to the desktop. Also on the desktop is a copy of the KIS16 data file, which is similar to the file that most institutions would have uploaded for the KIS16 submission. For those of you that are more familiar with the KIS16 submission, you will notice that this is a KIS16 file by the rec ID of 16061, and also because it includes several fields that aren't eligible or shouldn't be included for the Unistats 17 submission. These include the fee fields, the KIS type field, and also the course stage information, which sits at the bottom of the course section. Once you've downloaded the data editor, you can open it, and in the top left hand corner you can click on File and then open your KIS16 data file through the Unistats 17 data entry tool. Ours is saved on the desktop and it's called C16061. Now if you click on the plus button next to the institution, you can see that there are two examples of validation warnings or errors. The first that we will look at is in the ILR aim section. So the ILR aim is the code that's used in the ILR record to link to a particular course. So this course it's titled Course 1 at Poppleton College, links to the ILR aim 100400638 in the years 13 and 14. We also wanted to link to that ILR aim ID in the year 2015, which wouldn't have been done in the previous KIS16 file. We can also look at the validation error here, and that's because a rec ID has not been selected. We will select the 17061 rec ID, which is the correct one for the Unistats 17 submission process. We also would suggest that you check each part of the submission, or the data entry tool part, for the creation of the file, just to make sure that all the data included is as you'd expect. So you can see we've got the right KIS course ID, we're calling this Course 1. That's also the title as well, which you will be able to see at the bottom. We've got all of the correct URL links. We've got naught in the distance, foundation, honours, lock change, sandwich and year aboard fields, and you can find about more information on those fields in HESA's coding manual. You will also notice the KIS aim of 038, which is the KIS aim for an HND. The UCAS prog ID code, you will see there, you need to make sure that is updated for the 1819 intake rather than the 1718 intake. The same also goes for the UCAS course ID in the course location section. So once you've checked your file, you can go to File, Save As, and we'll save this on the desktop. We will give it the same name as last year's file, but instead we will call it 17061. Once you've created your Unistats 17 file, you will need to upload it to the HEFKey extranet. We first suggest that you use HESA's validation kit to check for validation 1 errors and warnings. Once you're happy with those, you can attempt to upload it to the HEFKey extranet. To do that, you will need to navigate to data.hefkey.ac.uk. Once you have uploaded your file, you will be returned to the main Unistats submission system portal, where you will see a status of waiting. It may well say processing once the file has actually reached the system, and then options to cancel or download the results package. By clicking on status, you will refresh the portal to see the current status of your Unistats upload. Each upload may take anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes. If it takes any longer, you may contact us to find out what the issue is. You will now see that the file has been completed, so that means it's passed all the way through our system, and that a results package is available. By double-clicking on results, you're able to download a results package, which should appear to contain these following documents. You should have 2 check docs, that's check doc 1 and check doc 2, and then the val 1 and val 2 validation documents. All 4 should have the UK PRN of the submitted document. So in this case, those 8 8s, which is the UK PRN for Poppleton. We will now have a look through each of the documents to see what information is stored within them. We can now take a look at the results package that you will have downloaded. So the files in here that we will first look at are the validation 1 and validation 2 documents. So the validation 1 document will be the same validation information that you attain if you've uploaded a document through the HESA validation tool. While this is a good option and an efficient and quick option to attain validation 1 errors, it will not give you validation 2 errors, and we will also not be able to help you resolve those errors if the file is not uploaded through our system. You can see in this case we have no validation 1 errors. If there were validation 1 errors, the rule, the description, the location of the error, the severity, and a flag to tell you whether it's a schema error or a data error would show in that section below. We can also have a look at the validation 2 outcomes. So here you will see that we have slightly more errors and warnings. We would stress that errors must all be fixed before a file can be signed off. Warnings should all be checked. It may be that you are signing off an XML that contains warnings, but if you're happy with the data and you're happy that those warnings are there and they should be there, then you are eligible to sign off the data.
So moving on to the check docs. So check docs were an area that came up through the training that we did before that could use a little bit more detail. We felt that initially they were less important at the very early stages when we were just talking about the changes and how to pass validation. But once your data is valid, it is extremely important to check these check docs. So they are your first opportunity to see the data that will appear on Unistats for your college. They're particularly important because they're the only way to see what data will be published on the website before it's been signed off and the website has been updated. So if there's anything that looks strange to you, this is the place to find it and then make changes and resubmit your data. So with that in mind, we would always advise that the head of institution checks the check docs before signing off the data so that they know what it is that they're signing off, so they know that this will be published publicly for prospective students to see. So we're going to pick out some of the key aspects of check docs 1 and 2 to talk about in a bit more detail. So initially, check doc 1, which you can see the front page there, shows the data included in your submission to us as it will be displayed on Unistats. So the first tab that we're going to have a look at is the potential KISS courses tab. This tab lists all of the courses that, based on the data that we hold, could possibly be displayed on Unistats, but they have not been included in your submission. So you should check this thoroughly to make sure that you've not missed any courses that you still intend to run in 2018-19. The courses in this will have been run in 2015-16 or the 2 years prior to that, but you have not included in your submission, so we are presuming that you're no longer running those courses for 2018-19. The next tab is the location. So the location tab shows where your campus is, or just your one campus, is located. The particularly important part of this is the latitude and longitude, as this places the pointer for your location on the maps on Unistats. So it is possible, with just getting those numbers slightly wrong, for the pointer to show your location in an ocean or in France, and you obviously don't want that. So it's important to check that those two figures, the latitude and longitude, are correct. The next tab that we're going to look at is the Quiz Course tab. So this is a list of all the courses that have been included in your submission, and the details that you have provided on those courses. So it's best to double check that you haven't missed any here. This tab also gives you the UCAS prog ID, and this is the UCAS prog ID that you have submitted. These values will change year on year, so you should not expect this to be the same as last year. If you have submitted a file with the same value as last year, then you will get an error. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on UCAS prog ID errors in a second, because I know it's something that has been causing some issues. The next tab in the CheckDoc 1, and this is the final one we'll look at in CheckDoc 1, shows how you've linked back to previous year's data in your submission. So you can link to HESA courses or ILR AIM IDs. These will link in your data, your student data, and so will provide all of the different values that will appear in CheckDoc 2 that we're coming on to. It's important to note that there are multiple rows per course in this tab, so that there's one for each mode and year combination, so you can show up to 3 years of data in here, and 2 modes for each of those years, so there could be 6 rows for each course in this. For this year's submission, the years included must only be 2013, 2014, and or 2015. So the most recent year is the 2015-16 academic year that you're linking to for ILR or HESA data. Okay, so then moving on to CheckDoc 2. So CheckDoc 2 shows the student data that we hold that you have linked to in your submission. This includes information on entry qualifications, continuation data, degree classifications, and DELI and NSS results. There is also a tab for tariff, but in most cases you would expect this to be blank, as it is only populated for HESA courses. So if you franchise in from an HEI, then you may have tariff data. Otherwise, you'd expect this to be blank. So we're going to show the entry qual tab, just to give you an idea of what to expect. But there are similar information displayed for each of the tabs in this CheckDoc. So although we're using entry as the example, the same things apply for the other tables. Data on Unistats is restricted according to certain publication thresholds. So depending on what type of data we're looking at, different publication thresholds will be applied. For all tables, there needs to be at least 10 students included for the section that we're looking at, so for a course or a subject. In addition, the DELI and NSS data is further restricted by response rate thresholds that must also be met. So for this year, for the first time, the DELI data will be restricted by response rate thresholds. NSS is restricted to 50% of students need to have responded for that section to be shown. Within this tab, we can see all of the KIS course IDs submitted in your file, along with the aggregation for which they are displayed on Unistats. So in column H of this tab, you can see the aggregation years. So for the one course that's included, this is aggregated to 2 years of data. So we're aggregating the 2015 data with 2014 data in order to show enough. The aggregation level shown is level 3, so that is the widest range of subject levels. So if your data is being shown at course level, you'd expect the aggregation level in column I to show a 4, and if it's shown for just 1 year, then we expect the years to show just 1. So it goes from 1 year at level 4, which is course, up to at the highest level, 2 years at subject level 1, which is the I guess widest spread subject. Okay, so the final tab that we're going to look at in CheckDoc 2 is the JAX level 3 not included. So these are subjects that we have for you in our data but have not been incorporated into any of your subject level aggregations. Please check this to ensure that you agree that each of these subjects is discontinued at your college. So any subjects in this you used to run, but according to your submission, they are discontinued. Overall, we have just briefly covered some aspects of this CheckDoc. It's important for you to look at each tab in the file so that you can see what will be displayed on Unistats. This is particularly important in this CheckDoc because it's how the data has been linked to, and a large number of the queries that we receive from students are, this data doesn't look like how I would expect. Okay, in the CheckDocs, if you're submitting data at the moment, the NSS and DELI data is not shown in those CheckDocs. So that will become available in the next couple of weeks, and we will email to let you know that. Data is not able to be signed off until it has been processed with NSS and DELI.
So we're now going to take you to the sign-off part of the system. So once NSS and DELI data has been added to the submission, the sign-off system will also become available. Once valid data is submitted, so that's data without any errors, the head of institution will need to log on to their extranet account and download the sign-off document. They can then fill in their details into this sign-off document, so that will be their name, their email, their telephone number, and their position. But you will see on that sign-off form that there is a second box for their delegated authority. So the head of institution must complete the initial sign-off, but they are able to delegate authority to another member of staff to complete further sign-offs. This will mean if you have a head of institution who will become unavailable a little bit later on in July or throughout August, they can have delegated authority before they leave the institution to make sure there is no delay in further sign-offs. Once this form has been completed, you will need to re-upload it to the system, similarly to the way that a main data file submission was uploaded. However, this time you should receive an email to the account it was uploaded from to tell you that the upload of the sign-off form was successful. This email will also give you information about whether a delegated authority was successful. You may also receive an email to say that the upload of the sign-off document failed. These failure emails should tell you the reason for the failure, but if you're unclear about the reason for a failure, or you don't receive any email upon uploading your sign-off document, we suggest that you contact the Unistats inbox, and we should hopefully be able to identify what the problem was.
Okay, so the last bit of this, we're going to just take you through some frequently asked questions. So, firstly, a question that we've been getting quite a lot is related to the UCAS prog ID and getting errors around that. So, institutions should make sure that their courses are set as published and running through the collection tool for the 18-19 academic year. You will find that if you contact us relating to the UCAS errors, that we will usually put you in contact with UCAS themselves. So our process is that we get sent the data that they have available on a daily basis, and that just populates our system. So the best thing to do if you have an issue with your UCAS data is to either call the data collection team, and the number is there on the screen, and we will make it available afterwards, or to email them at ucasprod@service-now.com. So the issues are generally either that your course isn't published and running, or that you are submitting the same UCAS prog ID as the previous year, or if it's neither of those things, then UCAS should be best placed to help you with that. The other frequently asked questions that we have received are related to the sign-off system. So only the head of institution can make the initial sign-off, and only the head of institution can delegate authority to someone else. So if they initially delegate authority to one person and then someone else needs to have authority, that delegated authority cannot further delegate. So it must go back to the head of institution again. Once someone has been delegated authority, they can make any further sign-offs. Every sign-off that you make will get you'll get an automatic email to the account on which the sign-off was attempted. So the head of institution signs off, then there will be an automatic email to them. That will either say that it has been successful or that it has been unsuccessful. You should only link to HESA course IDs and ILR AIM IDs for the students in the most recent 3 years of the HESA or ILR record. And any course that is not a new course, we would expect to see linking back to at least one of those 3 years. If you do have a new course, then no ILR AIM IDs or HESA course IDs should be returned for it. But then there are a number of other fields that become applicable. So for new courses, there are different information that needs to be entered. These include the LDCS, so the subject code, whether it's teacher training, and whether that we would expect to see NHS data in the NSS results. This also applies to courses that have changed significantly, where you wouldn't want to link back to previous data because it is not applicable. The Unistats system remains open throughout the year, so it reopens after the deadline to allow for data updates, but you must meet that final sign-off deadline in order for your data to be included in the Unistats refresh. So new data should be signed off by Tuesday lunchtime, and if it is signed off by Tuesday lunchtime, so that is before 12 p.m, it will appear on Unistats on the next Wednesday. Okay, we've had a few questions in during this, so thank you for sending through those questions to us. We will try to answer a couple of these now. You're still free to email us any questions. We'll answer any that we can while we're on the line now. And anything else that comes through, or we feel like it's just an individual question to answer for you, then we will do these by email as soon as we can.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of sign-off questions that have come in, so we'll cover these. So the first one, I think, is came in just as we started the sign-off part about the principal's role. So the head of institution will need to complete the first sign-off. We really stress that because with the data going public, we need confirmation from effectively the top of the institution to say they've looked at the check box and they're happy with what's going to go live regarding the college. So it has to be the principal that completes the first one, but they can then delegate authority to another member of staff to complete further sign-offs. We don't expect the principal to sign off more than once. As long as this delegation of authority is done correctly, it can then be passed on to another member of staff. The other query we've had about these delegated authorities is whether previous delegation requests will still stand year on year. So this is something that we've had, we do kind of have this question quite frequently. Unfortunately, don't. And the reason for that is because we find that often the person who has the authority delegated to them changes year on year. And there are cases where if we did put this in place, we would then have automatic authority to somebody no longer at the institution. And although that's unlikely to cause a problem, we wouldn't want to then put that sign-off in the hands of somebody that ultimately no longer is responsible for it. So each year, a new delegation of authority will need to be put in place. But as we say, once that's done, these sign-offs can then be completed by a separate member of staff. So I think that's it for questions we've had at the moment. If you've got any more and we get them swiftly, we can cover them. If not, we're more than happy to reply to any we get by email, via the Unistats inbox, as we would usually do. If there's anything that comes in that we think would be helpful for more than just the sender to know, we can tag that on to the end of the recorded version of this webinar that will be made available after, and we'll contact you all about how you can watch the webinar back once it's ready to go.